Hello everyone, I'm here with another interview, this time with, well, I hope he is my friend, but you know, either way, Alex,
Good start. Good start.
I consider you my friend. It might not be the same way on
No,
on
it's
the other.
reciprocal. It's reciprocal. I
Okay,
count you
okay.
among my top 10 friends in Czechia. You know.
Well, I was like 10th or ninth or whatever, when we were doing a scale thing. Like we were playing a game with Andre and Alex, and you know you just say a name and the person you ask just says a number from 1 to 10 how much they like that person on like a certain scale. And when my name was mentioned, I was like ninth or something. Andre was obviously first, but just wanted to point that out. Anyway, Alex is of course a Pro Tour champion. He's also a former member of MPL, currently in Rivals, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you know, overall, very nice and very smart dude. At least he
Uh,
claims that about himself all the time. Uh, Besides that, he also won 5 GPs, and you know, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit. So, how you doing, Alex? What's up with you?
I'm doing all right. I mean, as well as anybody can be expected to do during these Corona times. You know, the world is kind of crazy, and hoping things will eventually get back to more normal. Can start traveling again. That's one of the things I really miss, certainly. But I have money. I can stay inside. I'm healthy, and it's hard to ask for much more right now. So
So, are you like actually missing the real life tournaments? Because I think that when you know back in the day when you were just traveling like every 2 weeks to like a GP or whatever, I think you were like one of the people who said that you like hate the traveling all the time. But now you said that you miss it. So is it?
well, okay. There's a difference between traveling every 2 weeks to go to a GP
Yeah.
and traveling, every couple months to go and do something for fun or whatever, or see friends. It's the seeing of friends really, and going to cool places, eating cool food, seeing things. That's what I miss. I don't miss being in a GP convention center every week or two. I did that life back in 2015 or whatever for the GP Player of the Year, and that was not fun.
Was
I
it
do
was it
not
the
recommend it.
was it the one where Brian Dewin got qualified because of that, or what do you mean?
No, no, I qualified from that actually
Oh,
in
really?
2015. I was the GP Player of the
Oh,
Year.
I
If
actually
you knew
didn't know
that.
that.
Yeah, it's in 2014. I won 3 GPs, and then the year after that, I was GP Player of the Year.
Oh.
So that year, I won 1 GP. I won GP Krakow in 2015,
Mhm.
and basically like the way the GP Player of the Year race that year was, I wasn't expecting to be in it at all. I hadn't played even that many GPs, but then following Pro Tour Brussels, I went to Krakow with a bunch of people, and we didn't test at all after that. We tested for the Pro Tour, but not for the GP, and we just played Esper Dragons and ended up winning the GP, and
Yeah,
then
pretty well.
two weeks later or whatever, there was a GP Atlantic City, driving distance, and I went and stayed with Frank Scarron, who I think you just interviewed. Uh, and stayed at his house and hung out and stuff, and then went to the GP, and then I lost in the finals. So
Mhm.
then suddenly I just had like 14 extra points
Mhm.
from, and I was like in first or I was in like second place for the GP Player of the Year race. So I was like, well, I guess I'll try and do this, and well, I succeeded
That's awesome.
mostly consistently, like getting 3 points at basically every GP I played.
Yeah, I just wanted to like ask about this a little bit because I mean, kind of at the beginning when you got into the scene, uh you basically almost immediately won a Pro Tour, and then you really didn't really get a second top 8 until recently with Tron. But you were just like crushing GPs, right? You won 5 of them. You were always deep in the tournament. So like I wanted to just like ask about like maybe it was just variants, or maybe you just like fundamentally super strong and at the game. So like at the GPs, you know, no one is really preparing that much for them, so you get like your huge edge. But maybe at the Pro Tours, when just people are just like constantly preparing for 3 weeks, and maybe you don't put in as much time or something, you lose your edge. Or like, what do you think are the reasons? Because even during the time when you like weren't competing the Pro Tours, when I was like testing with you guys with face to face and stuff, like everyone always considered you as like maybe one of the top 5 players in the world. So what do you think are the reasons why you weren't succeeding at the Pro Tour as much as you might could have?
Well, I think that's a pretty good question. I mean, yeah, GPs and Pro Tours are pretty different. That nowadays it's at least, well, now there haven't been GPs lately, but in the past couple years, people have been taking GPs more seriously and really testing for them, I think. But yeah, it definitely felt that at least the pros didn't really take GPs seriously, and I was among them. And I think my strengths definitely lie in the point when people have relatively low preparation, because there's some people I saw you did an interview with Brian Braun-Duin, who you said you can make it to the top even if you don't have necessarily that much talent, if you just put in a lot of hard work. This interview is probably not as useful because I feel like I'm the opposite, where I have a lot of talent but don't put in very much work at all.
It is usually like that. I think when you're like kind of winning despite not really trying that hard, it's like hard to force yourself to try that much, I think,
right.
But I don't really know.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you take it back to school, imagine if you get 90% on every test without putting in any effort, or you can study 20 hours and get 100%. Which are you going to do? You're not going to study, right? And that's kind of how my approach to Magic has been a lot. And yeah, for GPs, when people weren't putting in much effort, I also wasn't putting in any effort, and I do very well. But I think when it comes to Pro Tours, it's a bit different. I mean, there's a lot of variance whether you top 8 or something, right? You look at people's win percentages and what like a good lifetime win percentage on the Pro Tour is. I mean,
of course, you can still have a super high win percentage and just like not get that last win, and in the overall top 8 stats, it might seem that you weren't winning as much, but you were. But I don't necessarily think that might have been the case for you, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you look at the difference between people's win rates at GPs and PTs, some players really win a huge amount more at GPs than at Pro Tours. I'm not one of those players. I have a very good Pro Tour win percentage as well.
Okay, I actually don't know your stats, so Yeah,
I win 60% of my matches basically at the Pro Tour level, and have been pretty consistent about that. I mean, I stayed basically platinum every year from just having good finishes. I think part of certainly the preparation thing was part of it, but I was usually on good preparation teams, and I would put in the work for Pro Tours. I mean, I put in like I wouldn't be the first person awake in the morning and the last person to go to sleep at night like Mike Sigrist or something, but it was I would be there and I'd be working and I'd be learning. It's just I think there certainly were a lot of flaws in the way I did things. Partly, I was a victim of my early success. Like when I won the Pro Tour, it was with Miracles.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that a little bit. So, like for the most of the time, you were actually like a known pro. You were testing with a team face to face. We even were together for like 1 year, one of the years. But before that, before you won the Pro Tour, how did you like actually prepare? Like did you had like any kind of a team in Canada, or were you just preparing by yourself? How did it all happen at the beginning?
Well, so my first Pro Tour was Philadelphia 2011, which was the first modern Pro Tour. So I qualified for that, and I had 3 other Canadians, well actually 4 other Canadians, but 3 that came out to test that I was working with. One of whom I guess you would know in Pascal Maynard.
Oh yeah, Pascal is great.
Yeah,
I mostly know him from the time after Pro Tour. Maybe or maybe not involving some alcohol and stuff, but
Yeah, he's a bit of a party animal. He's a fun guy. I mean, I've known him for a long time, since he was like 14 years old or something. And I was 18. He was like the first good opponent I ever played in a tournament. It was a Magic Scholarship Series, which basically like a JSS, and we played like both at 4-0 or something, and it was a good match, and I was like, whoa, that was cool. I played against someone like really good, at least at the time. And then it's cool to see from that, like, both of us have had quite a bit of success on the pro scene. But yeah, so I tested with a few Canadians for that, and I didn't do particularly well. I didn't make day 2. I would have with today's cuts, but I went 4-4.
Okay, yeah.
And
Back in the day, it was 5-3, I think, right?
yeah, you need to go 5-3 to make day 2 back in the day. I guess I'm old man dating myself a little bit in that way, but
Well, even
anyways.
myself, I played Pro Tours that you needed to go 5-3. It's actually not that long ago. I think it's like 5 years or something.
Well, I think actually I think Barcelona was the first time. The Pro Tour 1 was the first one you could go 4-4 and make day 2, but that was my 4th Pro Tour. But so following my first Pro Tour, like 2 weeks later, there was a local GP in Montreal where I came second, and that qualified me for Pro Tour in Hawaii, but also on rating to the last old World Championship, which was in San Francisco in 2011. And there I did well enough to get kind of which was to be a level 3 pro from just kind of my 2 Pro Tours played and one GP.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you maybe like just explain to the audience that maybe didn't know the old system of levels? Just like explain.
Yeah, no,
what it was.
I was about to. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So, it's okay. So back then I think there were 8 levels, and ranging from level 1 where you got nothing if you just had any pro points at all. To level 3 was the first level where you really got any benefits. You got to be qualified for 1 Pro Tour of your choice, but no flights or anything. Level 4, you got to be qualified for all Pro Tours. Then level 5, Pro Tours and flights. I'm not really sure beyond that because I basically that was the only time I had a number level. After that, the system changed to silver, gold, platinum, where silver was basically what level 3 was. You were invited to 1 tournament.
Yeah, I
Gold,
remember.
you were invited to all the tournaments and flights, and then platinum, you were invited to all the tournaments, flights, and appearance fees.
Yeah, I remember when they announced that change, everyone like didn't really like it at the beginning, right? Because before it was like super fair, like just a couple points up, and you just like change to a different level. But so there were like 8 of them or something, and then they went basically to only 3. So someone who has like maybe even 12 more pro points than someone else might end up in like the same group. But I guess we eventually got kind of used to it, and no one was really thinking about that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we got used to it because that was the way it was. There was nothing to do about it. In my opinion, obviously, as a pro, you'd rather a system with more levels because that rewards both success, but also doesn't punish failure as hard. Because with the way the 3 level system is, if there are a lot of people, like twice in my career, I missed platinum, out of like 10 years or whatever, and those times I was like I wasn't close to missing gold, but I was close to getting platinum, right? So under the level system, I would have been rewarded more than someone who barely got to the threshold to get the invites, right?
Yeah, for me as well. Like I hit a platinum 1 year, and then the following 2 years I missed like 3 or 4 points for platinum, but it just like didn't matter at all. And just like for someone from Czech Republic, the difference in money was just like it just had a huge impact on my life. And in like the previous system,
you own a couple houses by now, right?
Pretty much, yeah. But in the previous system, maybe I wouldn't have been like level 8 or 7, but I would still be like 6 or whatever, and it would be fine. So yeah, it definitely kind of sucked that they did that. But I think the reason why they did that was that just like for a regular player, just like level 6 or level 7 doesn't tell them anything, but they can kind of understand from like the gold platinum, I suppose. It's way more simple, I guess.
Yeah, I think the idea was to make it more understandable for fans, like to understand what silver, gold, platinum. Okay, I think they didn't really succeed there, which is why they ended up scrapping that system. They didn't understand what the different levels meant, and really they didn't use good publicity. They didn't publicize, oh wow, this person's a platinum level pro. Do you understand how hard that is to actually achieve? Instead they're like, oh yeah, we're here with 2 great players sitting across from each other in the feature match, and that was it. No matter who the players were. But yeah, so continuing on my pro journey, so that basically qualified me for the next. I was qualified for a string of Pro Tours. Basically, after coming second at GP Montreal back in 2011, I was qualified. I never played a Pro Tour without being qualified for the next one, which was kind of nice. And
The humble brags keep coming.
and it happened in Barcelona was my fourth Pro Tour, and then winning that, I needed to come in the top 75 to get gold, and top 8 to get platinum, and I ended up winning, which got me platinum and worlds and rookie of the year, and that was cool. But really, my team before that was I was fairly Canada centric.
Mm-hmm.
I know for someone from like the Czech Republic, you think of Canada and the U.S. as basically the same.
I mean,
But,
I am not like that, but my parents definitely are. If that
well,
makes
yeah,
any
I mean,
sense.
not necessarily. I mean, in terms of like Magic, you think of like the opportunities and the availabilities for everybody, and
Well, I actually follow Magic since I was 15, like super closely. Like I've watched all the videos and everything, so I think I personally had a pretty good idea. Like I wouldn't have thought that, but you're right that like an average person in Europe would probably think that, yeah.
But the reality is that it is harder, for a Canadian to make it as a pro than an American. There are a lot of systems and set up for Americans to succeed, and a lot of barriers for Canadians to do so. It's not like coming from Brazil and becoming a pro. It's not anywhere near that level of difficulty. But there are a few barriers, and one of which is like the team thing, that someone like Shahar Shenhar breaking into the pro scene immediately got to test with like the best players, Reed Duke too. But that wasn't the case for me. I kind of built my own team, and it started with just I literally invited every Canadian player who qualified for the Pro Tour to come and test with us. That was what our team for Barcelona was.
Mm-hmm.
So people like quoting that our Miracle deck had a low win percentage, and yeah, it wasn't a perfect deck by any means, but the quality of player who played it was not necessarily that high. We had a lot of people, there's the first Pro Tour and often their only Pro Tour,
Yeah.
playing that deck.
So I wanted to talk about the deck a little bit. Like you won with Blue White Miracles. It was a block format, and you played all 16 Miracle cards available, right? Even the one that when you Miracle it, you put all the creatures on back into their hand and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, there were other Miracles available in
Oh, I
those
see.
colors,
Okay.
but I played, basically, I guess they're probably the only rare or mythic ones in Blue and White, though. Yeah.
Did you
basically-
did you got like really lucky during the tournament by just like drawing the terminus on the right turns or whatever, or do you just think the deck was pretty good?
I think the deck was pretty good. You have to remember, it looks underpowered, and that's because it was a block constructed format.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, like a lot of my tournament success there was due to the fact I went 6-0 and limited. So I didn't do that amazingly well in constructed. I mean, I started the tournament 1-3 when constructed was at the beginning, so I was expecting to have a very poor showing at that point. But the format generally wasn't that fast. It's not like Legacy or even Standard nowadays where if Terminus is a card that you have to Miracle. Hardcasting Terminus was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And
did you ever mess up with like the miracle thing? Did you just like immediately draw a card and then oh shit, it was actually a miracle? Did that happen to you?
Not in that tournament, but
Okay.
later it was funny because I played Legacy Miracles for the first time in a Grand Prix, and in my first round playing with it, I just messed up and like just drew a card or whatever, and it was a Terminus or whatever. But no, for the Pro Tour, I practiced, and along with my team, we practiced making sure we draw, because when you're playing a deck like that, you have to. You really, you're,
Well, I guess
I
guess if you have like literally 16 miracles in your deck, it's way easier to remember than in Legacy when it just doesn't happen that often, I guess.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. It happened so much, and even spent working like in the top 8. I was playing against John Finkel, and now I wouldn't do this. That's one of the differences from younger me was very intimidated. And all my teammates are like, "Oh, John Finkel, he's gonna read you. You have to act exactly the same no matter what you draw." Like, so we like practiced, like how we'll draw the card and look at it, and have to make a decision pretty quickly whether you're gonna cast a miracle or not, because sometimes you want to and sometimes you don't, right? Like,
well, you can also what you can also do is I actually saw Reed Duke do that when he was playing Bonfire Enchant, that no matter which card he drew, he just like kind of put it aside and he started thinking, and then he just did something. So that way, you don't really get your opponent to know anything.
No, yeah, I remember seeing Reed Duke do that at a Grand Prix, and I was just like, I should have done that. It's so much better way to do it. Yeah. But it also would have taken so much. It was very slow, like to the point that he probably should have gotten a slow play warning. But he's Reed Duke, he's in a top 8.
He's not gonna get a warning. Come on.
Yeah, but I think slow play warning should probably be given out more often, but in live Magic. But that's a separate thing. But anyways, with your original question of how I worked with teams, kind of following that, the team I worked with, we called ourselves basically face to face, sort of, and that team formed. Like I recruited people from outside of Canada after having that success because I was better known and had more sway, and then slowly kind of built it up into the powerhouse that should end up recruiting you, and it was pretty cool to see, how certainly for a period of like 1 or 2 years, it was the best team in the world, starting and having known where it started from, where it's basically just a bunch of PTQ winners, was pretty cool, and it was certainly a lot of work to get there. One of the things is that like people always talk about in Magic how you get better by testing and playing with people better than you, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not always that easy to achieve. Sometimes it's hard to find the people who are better than you because they also want to play with people better than them. Or you don't have access to players or whatever. In Czechia, I think it's a small country. People, if you're good, you're probably going to get seen by the other good players.
Yeah, like it has both advantages and disadvantages. Like the advantages was that, even when I was like 16 or 17, I was already like pretty good in terms of Czech, and there are not that many players, so like I just went to GP with Martin Hughes and Lukas Blohon. That would have never happened in States, right? But right. At the same time, it kind of has its what is the word? Well, you get to a point where you're testing with all the good players, but there are actually not that many of them in general, right? So it goes both ways, I guess.
Right. Well, whereas in Canada was kind of, we had maybe had the same amount of good players as the Czech Republic did, but spread over the whole of Canada. So it was kind of tough. And until like, or about 2010-ish era, in 2011, really the good Canadian players didn't test together, didn't communicate, because we kind of were all in these pockets based off of what city we were in. And someone like KYT, who made kind of a Canadian website and kind of brought a lot of people from different areas together, but it's still very hard because geographically it's such a big country, but with population is small. So
yeah, that makes sense.
It was tough to kind of get a crew together because it's like the population of California but spread over the size of Canada. Versus some California where everybody's just concentrated in one area and the good players, you can learn from them. So my solution was kind of to train the people around me who were promising to make them better, so that I would have good people to play with, and it worked. And I think that is a method. It's a slower method than just testing with people better than you to start with, but sometimes you don't have that option, and I think. It's something that doesn't get talked about that much. Plus,
I actually have like can relate to that because like I have a roommate that moved with me like 3 months ago, and he was a Magic player, but since he moved here, we just like playing together all the time, and even like after the 3 months, he sometimes like has ideas now that I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. So he's actually like starting to be helpful to me as well. So it's definitely possible to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, something I learned and kind of internalized early on was this idea that in Magic, everybody has something to teach you. Even if they're way worse than you, they have something that you can learn that you don't know. And, sure, you're maybe way better than them in everything else, but there's this one thing that you can learn. And kind of the way I've approached Magic is trying to learn that one thing from everybody that I meet and incorporate it into my play.
Which one? What did you learn from Andre?
How to be lucky.
Yeah, I tried to acquire that skill as well, but didn't get there yet, I guess.
I mean, I managed to top 8 a pro tour with Tron, so uh, that was me using Andre's lessons.
So anyway, now we have the new system. There's also Corona, so we don't really have any real tournaments. Everything is played in arena. You were MPL last year. Now you're rivals. How much time do you spend playing Magic now? And what's your perception about how things are right now? Do you still think you're gonna continue playing? Do you like the new system? Like just like talk about it a little bit if you can.
Sure. So yeah, I was in the inaugural class of MPL as the only player in the MPL actually who hadn't top 8 at a tournament the year that got me inducted. I top 8 at 0 events, counting GPs, counting even FNM or whatever because I didn't play FNM. But like I just had my Pro Tour results were really solid. I top 16 one, top 25 another, top 32 to another, and it was and had decent GP results, and that got me into the MPL as like basically at the bottom. And yeah, the MPL year was kind of disappointing. They shifted the goalposts a bunch of times, changed what was required and they wanted to happen with the MPL, and I ended up missing by one match. If I'd won one match in any event in the whole year, I would have been in MPL again. So that was a bit disappointing.
Sorry to hear.
Well, it's okay.
Maybe I'm actually not sorry. Who knows? Let's continue.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people missed a lot of things by a bunch. Wasn't my first time missing something. I missed Worlds twice on tiebreakers. So, MPL I almost missed on tiebreakers. If nobody had turned down MPL and if they'd had a different tiebreaker system, the one they used for Worlds, in fact, I would have missed MPL on tiebreakers.
Wow.
But anyways, so yeah, now I'm a rival. And even when at the end of the MPL year, one of the reasons it wasn't that bad missing is that my current focus on Magic has been winding down. I mean, I never planned really to do Magic forever. It was something that my younger self, I was like, look, I have this opportunity from doing well in these tournaments, and I'm going to try being a pro because, if I'm 90 years old, I'm not going to have wished I worked at a paper factory or whatever for 10 years of my life. And I would be sad if I hadn't taken the opportunity to, travel the world, meet people, and play this game that I love for a living. So now, the Corona thing, frankly, I hate it. I hate playing these online tournaments. It's a miserable activity for me. Kind of the way things are right now, it really emphasizes that the things I liked about in the last few years, at least, I've not liked the Magic that much. I've liked the gathering and I've liked the paycheck. And so you ask how much Magic do I play? The bare minimum, as in I often do not play anything outside of tournaments.
Oh, so you just like take a deck from like someone else, someone posts you a deck list, and you just like don't even practice like at all?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
I just basically, for a tournament like this most recent Zendikar Rising thing,
yeah,
that was the most I've prepared for a tournament in a year, basically, since and I played a little bit, about 2-3 hours maybe.
Can you like see that your like playing ability suffers from that, or is it not that big of a difference?
It definitely suffers. I mean, I've never been a huge practice player, so I actually find that if I practice too much, I get worse, which is interesting thing, and it's because I think that my my play style and the way I'm successful is often when I have to logically and analyze every situation and kind of work through it. Whereas some people are much more feel players. They just kind of do what their instincts tell them. And when I get into that autopilot situation, which often happens when I played a lot, my autopilot is not that good. I have to be on manual pilot, otherwise I'm going to crash the plane. And so, when I'm unpracticed, I have no autopilot at all. And so that's good and bad. But on the other hand, that's bad because somebody ends up casting a card and I have to read the card and like figure out on the top, and especially on Arena when that rope is going down,
Oh yeah.
it can hurt, and it definitely hurts. I mean, you want to. What I found for me, at least, the sweet spot was when I understood a format, I understood the decks and what they're trying to do, and I didn't need to know my deck inside and out and have played a million matches with it, but I needed to understand what everybody was doing. So I didn't need to have a sideboard guide, but I needed to understand what was important in the matchup so that I could bring in the right cards. What was important post board? Did the game slow down? Did they speed up? That type of thing. So certainly that stuff suffers a huge amount.
Yeah.
I played the first historic tournament I played this year. I didn't even know really what the ban list was for historic, and somebody cast a pact negation on me. I'm like, that card is in historic. Like, I had no idea. That type of thing definitely hurts. But
what do you think about the system as it is now? Because I see a lot of people complain about it. Wizards also change it all the time themselves, but I'm not really sure that anyone has like a necessarily like a perfect solution. Like people definitely don't like it, but maybe they don't have a right solution. Do you like what do you think about it? Do you maybe have an idea of what they should do, or what you would like them to do?
Yeah, well, I guess first we'll start by me saying that I don't really enjoy the current system. Even though I have been kind of a beneficiary of it, I preferred even the old system, other than the fact that they decided to put in a lot of money into the new system. That was the main thing I liked about the MPL, that they were finally putting money into professional Magic. And yeah, like you say, I don't think there is a perfect solution, but as Magic players in the game, we kind of are always looking for perfection, right? Because that search for perfection is often what drives us. It's certainly what drove me for a long time, but in a lot of areas, perfection is not attainable, and it's not healthy to even try. And I think in terms of system, that's something. You're not going to have a perfect system. You're not going to have a system that works for everybody. So you have to decide what is your system going to do and what's important to it. Right now, it seems like the system is trying to make Magic into a spectator sport. It's about entertaining the viewers. It's about it's about showing off diversity. It's about showing off the players who are well known. Keep showing them because the viewers are expected to know them, and of course you need to reward those players because otherwise, why are they going to keep showing up? And that seems to be the focus right now. For many years before, the focus was on rewarding the players who do well and encouraging people to play a lot of Magic to try and improve themselves and get to the top to get those rewards. And that shift over has been painful for a lot of people. Someone like you who's who's now basically getting no rewards at all from the pro system, who before was, because you're a very good player. That's a painful shift versus some people now who, let's say, are being rewarded not necessarily because they're a very good player, but because Wizards thinks that they're a good person to have, showing under the camera. They're a good person to have matches because people show up to watch their match, and a lot of people get motivated to play Magic from seeing that person, succeed. And so there's that different perspective. If you look at, it from the perspective of what Wizards is trying to achieve, you can see a lot of things that have definitely gone wrong. Certainly, the viewership numbers are not where they would like them to be.
Yeah, I actually wanted to say that myself. Like, before, when there was like a Pro Tour to paid, like I mean with like the real cards, it was usually around like 20,000, right? Viewers, maybe 18,000 or something like that. And now when I was watching the top 8 of the Zendikar Championship, it was actually even less than that. So like their main reason why they switched to the system was to like get those numbers up. And it's true that at the beginning, when like the first arena tournament was happening, it was maybe like 100,000 viewers or whatever. But we're certainly not there anymore. So it seems like they didn't really succeed in like the promotion part of the thing, and now they're just like pouring money into something that isn't really there. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I kind of do. I mean, there's some things that I can't necessarily speak freely on because I'm
Sure,
under
yeah.
a contract.
That's fine.
But yeah, I certainly feel that there was a lot of expectations, and a lot of people tried really hard to make the esports push of Magic into success, and it hasn't really panned out that way. And so you've lost a lot of people along the way who were your consistent viewers because of that shift, because it's not the same thing that they
Yeah.
grew up loving and like to watch. There was something exciting and prestigious about a pro tour before that you couldn't necessarily put into words. You couldn't label it. You couldn't put a price tag on it. There was something like magical there, and that's gone. They've kind of sold that out the window for what this new thing is, and a huge thing is lost there. And I think a lot of people feel that. And a lot of people were watching and excited about it because they felt that could be me up there. I could be that dude who's luck-sacking their way into a Pro Tour win with miracles. And now it's like, how does the average person, sure, it's possible they could become rivals or MPL, but they just
not really,
it
right?
doesn't seem. It seems like such a windy path, versus before you win a PTQ. You win a tournament, bang! You're there.
You say that it is possible, but like realistically, it really isn't, right? Like 99% of the people in both rivals and NPL are like kind of known players, or like maybe not known, but they were like pretty good even before. So like the dream of just like some dude that just like wins a PTQ and then he gets into top 8 of a Pro Tour, it just cannot really happen, right? So like it's just not that encouraging to try, I think.
Right. I mean, first of all, getting lucky, like, just winning a PTQ, winning a PT, that path doesn't seem there. And even the path of just being really good and really consistent, it doesn't really seem to be there either, because you kind of have to get lucky in a couple of right spots to get in, and it's just really, the system is not set up for the players, it's set up for the viewers. And it feels like they just didn't put in enough money and effort and time to really push Magic into the spot where it'd be a great viewer sport. Like, one thing is the questionnaires they ask pros every tournament, they're almost always the same. Like,
What is your
tell us
favorite
one
guild?
non-Magic related fact about you. What would winning this tournament mean to you? Describe your approach to this format in what way. What's your favorite card in this? Nobody cares about that stuff. Nobody's looking and reading this profile and being like, oh, wow, I really, really am a fan of Seth Manfield because he loves Brainstorm. Like, that's just not how human beings work. The reason people follow a lot of these sports line things are, first of all, they love the sport, they are attached to the team, or they attach to the human beings because they see people as another human being that they can relate to, and that's like them. They feel connection. And you don't feel connection to someone because they like Brainstorm, because their approach to historic format is to test really hard as much as they can or whatever.
Yeah, like it's just kind of weird to me that there are just like infinite people that could just like be in that spot of the caster who asks these questions, like someone who was part of the testing teams, like a former pro or whatever, and that person actually knows what to ask, right? But instead they just put like a random guy that's friends with someone. Sorry to say that on camera. I hope you don't get into trouble because of that.
You're saying it, not me.
Just some random dude, and then he just like asks 5 questions, and no one cares. Like, I'm gonna stop right here, but I just kind of had to get it out. I just kind of had to get it out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It feels like certainly when first joined the MPL, and there's an MPL meeting that we had in Seattle, and I was really optimistic about the future of things then, because it seemed like they were finally putting in the resources. They finally had like competent people, they were paying people well, and it seemed like all the ingredients were there, to make a success. But as anybody who's cooked for the first time can know, you can have all the right ingredients, but you can still come up with a mess at the end. And it kind of feels like that's where we're at, Raw fish can be delicious in sushi.
Do you think that maybe it's only because of Corona? Because maybe if the actual arena tournaments, like, you know, it is still played on arena, but people actually go to the place, you can make like live interviews with players. It was definitely better, you know. So maybe it is partially because of Corona, because, you know, it just isn't the same way when people just play from their computer. You can't really, you know, see the interactions between them and stuff. So, you know, maybe it is partially because of that, and it's not necessarily their fault.
Yeah, I mean, I think Corona definitely hurt things, but last year there was no Corona, so they don't have that excuse for.
But the numbers were a lot bigger than they are now, you know, during that time, I think.
Well, you know,
maybe
there's
it was just because it was
some
new.
discussion of paid for views and so on for some tournaments, but also I think that, you know, while Corona is also to blame for, is definitely to blame for people not watching as much, but I think also the fact that the tournaments just don't have either as much prestige or as much prize money on the line is a big thing. Like Corona, you know, whether it's just an excuse or the actual cause, ended up, you know, having millions of dollars cut from the prize pool for the pro season, and, you know, you see tournaments, these big tournaments that we're supposed to care so much about, that pay out $10,000, which is what like a GP would pay out before, and it's hard to get super excited to see someone winning $10,000, because, you know, sure, it's a good amount of money, maybe in Czechia, you know, it's a year's salary or something, but
yeah,
it's not it's not the same amount of life changing that something like, you know, $40,000, $50,000, or $100,000 would be to a lot of people, and so it's hard to really feel that change, because most people, if they get $10,000, it's you know, it's people who have enough money to be playing Magic in the first place. It's a nice amount of money, but, you know, you can't even really buy a legacy deck sometimes for that amount. So it's not really going to change that person's life. Whereas you can see other amounts, and people watch that and they feel like, you know, imagine if that was me, my life would change. It's why people play the lottery, and there's something missing there too. So I don't think it is, though, fully Corona to blame, but I agree with you that it certainly doesn't help. You know, it's a lot harder to have engaging things when you're talking all over on the internet rather than in person, but they're still not asking the right questions. They still don't have people who really know anything to ask them.
I think we already talked about that, so there's like no reason to talk about it more. I think we're talking for over 40 minutes now, so I think that should be plenty. You know, I don't want to make it an hour interview. No one will want to watch that. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, even though you're so charming, I
am pretty great.
Intro of your videos with you doing your hair is very very amusing.
I am pretty great. That's true, but, you know, I still think it was enough. I had fun. Thank you for taking your time with me. It was awesome.
My pleasure, and thanks for anybody who sat through this whole thing and watched it, and hopefully nobody from Wizards of the Coast. Anyway.
I actually hope for the opposite, but anyways. Thank you guys for watching. If you like the video, click on the like and subscribe button, and see you next time. Bye bye.